The Mandela effect is an incredible series of changes to our past, present, and future that we can't control or explain. Things remembered one way are now completely different. So why is this happening? The possible list of explanations can be endless. The Mandela effect is when a large group of people remember something differently than it is now. And today, I'm finally answering the question, what caused the Mandela effect? Is there even an original timeline? And if so, could we ever go back to it? And would we want to? On the same timeline we started with, such as the dynamic timeline theory? Or are all of these changes the result of jumping between parallel dimensions by means of the multiverse timeline theory? Is the multiverse timeline. The multiverse timeline theorizes an infinite number of parallel universes. Because of this, your actions will only have an effect on whatever timeline you're on. The Mandela effect is when a large group of people remember something differently than it is now. And today, I'm finally answering the question, what caused the Mandela effect? Imagine today there is a barren and empty field. Now imagine someone went back in time 100 years ago and planted seeds all across that empty field. Now, in the present day, that field could be covered in plant life. Trees, bushes, grass, flowers, all kinds of life. A vastly different outcome than when we started. All this to say is that a small change can have rippling effects in time. This has been a debate for years and years with many compelling arguments, and today I have 10 explanations for you, and we're going to go through all of them. Listen carefully to each of the arguments, and at the end I want you to tell me which one makes the most sense to you. And let's get into it. CERN is one of the world's largest centers for scientific research. The name CERN originates from the French phrase Conseil Européen pour la Recherche Nucléaire, which translates to the European Council for Nuclear Research. CERN was established in 1954 and is located on the border between France and Switzerland, near Geneva. This organization has the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator. The stated goal of CERN is to study fundamental particles by colliding protons and other particles at incredibly high speeds, allowing scientists to investigate the apparent forces that hold the universe together. So what makes people feel so nervous when it comes to CERN? For one, it's a massive facility working on research that challenges our understanding of the universe. It's the highest level of science, which is mostly unknown to the majority of the population of the world. This could be the cause of so much anxiety for some. There's also the fear of unintended consequences that might occur from CERN's experiments.
There are detractors. On YouTube, you get this. Some fear the experiment will create a black hole that will swallow the Earth. But CERN says this will not happen. Scientists say a microscopic black hole is possible, and this is what it might look like. But it would be too small and too unstable, winking out of existence in a matter of seconds.
Now, why do people think CERN caused the Mandela effect? Some people online believe that when CERN started up the Large Hadron Collider, it may have done more than just collide particles. These people speculate that by smashing atoms at near-light speeds, CERN accidentally shifted or merged parallel realities and created the Mandela effect. It's a bold claim that would require a lot of evidence to prove, so let's look into what CERN has actually accomplished and see if there's anything there. CERN discovered the Higgs boson particle, built the Large Hadron Collider, created the World Wide Web, and even made the first website. But did it cause the Mandela effect? That's the big question. While there's no direct evidence, it's been claimed by some that the timing of new Mandela effects coincides with CERN's experiments. The most interesting argument for CERN's involvement in the Mandela effect, at least from a hypothetical standpoint, is this really creepy theory. So imagine this, the world was actually set to end in 2012, and CERN's entire purpose and creation was to find a way to save our reality. The idea is that it worked and they saved our reality, but as a result, we jumped to another timeline where the world didn't end in 2012. The insane Mandela effects we've all been discovering and experiencing were the result. Not to mention all the insanity that has happened over the last decade plus. I'm sure many of you have felt that the world has been out of control for a while now. Think about how everything changed since 2012. Politics, social media, mass cell phone adoption, digital addiction, the dead internet theory, mass social unease. It feels like the world just snapped over the last decade. Does this mean CERN caused the Mandela effect? False memory, or bad memory, is the most widely used scientific explanation for the Mandela effect. The claim is that everyone is wrong and is simply misremembering all these details the same way all over the world, that it's all just a massive coincidence and it comes from the fallibility of human memory. The idea is that our brains are incredible, but far from perfect. These false memories arise when we confuse details or when memories blend with other events or information. Memory is apparently less reliable than you might think. Studies have shown that our memories are not only fallible, but can be astonishingly inaccurate. For instance, the forgetting curve concept, pioneered by Hermann Ebbinghaus, illustrates that without reinforcement, people forget approximately 50 to 80% of new information within days. What happens is that memory retention declines quickly without reinforcement, with up to 80% of information forgotten within days. This loss of information and memory happens rapidly before tapering off, which suggests that the more you review something, the more likely it is to be remembered. Ebbinghouse's studies emphasize that repeated learning sessions can significantly flatten this curve and enhance long-term memory retention, which makes one wonder if the Mandela effect is simply a case of not remembering every detail. So is it possible that hundreds of memory errors could be misinterpreted as a much more profound phenomenon? This makes up the mainstream argument against the Mandela effect. Its entire basis is that these hundreds and hundreds of examples of the Mandela effect are actually not true, and we all just collectively misremembered them. Another angle regarding the idea of bad memory is memory manipulation. Memory manipulation is another fascinating and somewhat unsettling phenomenon. It can occur both unintentionally and intentionally through techniques such as suggestion and manipulation. Memory researchers have long speculated that certain tactics may lead people to recall crimes that never occurred, and thus could potentially lead to false confessions. In fact, in a 2015 study, researchers used techniques that led about 70% of participants to develop false memories of having committed a crime in their youth, and this was only after 3 interviews. As bizarre as this sounds, it's true. With suggestive memory retrieval techniques, participants were induced to generate criminal and non-criminal emotional false memories. Then these false memories were compared to true memories of actual emotional events. The conclusion was that 70% of participants were classified as having false memories of committing a crime, such as theft, assault, or assault with a weapon, that led to police contact in early adolescence. Not only that, those 70% of participants actually volunteered a detailed false account of what happened, even though those events never actually happened, meaning suggestion seemingly created these false events. The reported false memories of crimes were similar to false memories of non-criminal events and to true memory accounts, which showed that these false memories even had the same kinds of complex descriptive and multisensory components as their real memories. It appears that in the context of a highly suggestive interview, people can quite readily generate detailed false memories of committing crime. It was the first study to provide evidence suggesting that false memories of committing crime could be generated in a controlled experimental setting. So we know for a fact that these collective false memories emerge, but the real question is, why do so many people remember the same event or fact inaccurately? That's the puzzling part to all of this, and I'd argue is the biggest weakness to this argument. Are the similarities in these false memories nothing more than coincidence? Does this mean false memory caused the Mandela effect? Could all of the hundreds of Mandela effect examples simply be the failings of human memory? Look into the idea that the Mandela effect is caused by time travel. To start, assume for a second that time travel is hypothetically possible, meaning even the smallest changes to the past could have ripple effects that alter the present. The Mandela effect could possibly be a consequence of time travelers interfering with the past, and thus changing seemingly insignificant details that lead to subtle and potentially major shifts in our current reality. Now let's take it a step further. Could some of our memories be from an alternate timeline, before someone went back and changed history? As in, what we remember could have been correct, but now isn't because of changes caused by time travel. But before we get too deep into the hypotheticals, let me first explain time travel and how it could potentially work. Time travel is defined as the act of traveling through time into the past or the future. As of now, scientists theorize that time travel can be split into 3 potential ways: a fixed timeline, a dynamic timeline, or a multiverse timeline. So I'm going to break down each of these for you right now. A fixed timeline proposes that time is linear and set in stone. Any changes you make to the past won't matter because we will ultimately end up with the same result. Let's say you make it so that the creator of the soda, Dr. Pepper, never made Dr. Pepper. A fixed timeline is where, even then, somehow, the person that is supposed to create Dr. Pepper still creates Dr. Pepper, and your actions made no difference. You traveling back in time and modifying things was already a part of the timeline, and you are simply fulfilling your predetermined role. Meaning it might be cool to have a time machine and to feel like you're making a change, but in actuality, everything you're doing is exactly what was supposed to happen. Because of everything I've explained, I feel like the Mandela effect has the least chance of existing on a fixed timeline. Time travel interference wouldn't change anything outside of exactly what was supposed to happen. I'm sure someone out there could speculate an example where the Mandela effect could exist, but this kind of timeline seems like the most unlikely. The second potential way time travel could exist is the dynamic timeline. Any changes you made to the past will absolutely affect the future. Let's use Dr. Pepper again. If you make it so that the creator of Dr. Pepper never made Dr. Pepper, we simply wouldn't have Dr. Pepper today. Perhaps some other brand would have taken its place. Perhaps Coke or Pepsi would instead have gained a larger market share. Whatever the case, the change in the past absolutely has an effect on the future. In a dynamic timeline, the Mandela effect makes perfect sense. Changes to the past will cause differences in the future. The third theory of time travel is the multiverse timeline. The multiverse timeline theorizes an infinite number of parallel universes. Because of this, your actions will only have an effect on whatever timeline you're on. So for example, let's use Dr. Pepper one last time. In the multiverse, every combination of Dr. Pepper existing, not existing, being slightly different, being vastly different, and every other differing variation exists in some timeline. In the multiverse timeline, the Mandela effect could be perfectly explained by saying we are shifting back and forth through parallel timelines. Shifting to a different timeline could result in vast differences, or something as simple as a logo being slightly different. It's a really goofy thought, but that's the theory. Now that the timelines are explained, we can go deeper into this concept. We could argue the theoretical possibility of time travel using a dynamic timeline or a multiverse timeline, as well as the insane potential implications of each regarding the Mandela effect. So to keep this video from being 3 hours long, I'm moving forward with a very simple blanket statement. Here's that statement. If time travel exists and is used at some point in the future to return to the past, then it is safe to assume time travel exists right now. Someone walking around today could be of another time entirely, and more than likely, we'd never know it. So assuming that's the case, where does the Mandela effect come in? Am I implying that the Kit Kat logo changed because some future person in the past drew an extra dash? No, nothing that specific and silly. But if this theory is to be believed, we need to understand the butterfly effect and how that's the key that ties all this together. The butterfly effect is essentially defined as a small change in the past can over time create a big change. The idea that the death of a butterfly could eventually have a far-reaching ripple effect on subsequent historical events made its earliest known appearance in a 1952 short story by Ray Bradbury called A Sound of Thunder. Today we're solely looking at the butterfly effect in relation to time travel. Geographical real-world example of the butterfly effect. In the Republic of Chad, in Central Africa, on the outskirts of the Sahara Desert, there is a valley called the Bodele Depression. It was once a lake that died long ago. But dig far enough into the ground, and its soil is still filled with nutrient-rich matter from microorganisms that lived there in the past. From October to March, winds from the east pass between two mountain ranges and across this ancient lake bed. When the winds climb to over 20 miles per hour, they pick up that ancient dust from the Bodele Depression. This dust is blown west all the way across Africa and out across the Atlantic Ocean. That dirt, soil, and debris from that one small valley in the Republic of Chad supplies over 50% of the nutrient-rich dust that fertilizes the Amazon rainforest. Meaning, an ancient lake between two mountain ranges dying off tens of thousands of years ago is the cause of the Amazon rainforest we know today. Imagine that for a second. A dying lake in Africa created the Amazon rainforest in South America. That's one incredible geographical example of the butterfly effect. Yes, this is yet another example of how our timeline would have drastically changed had a seemingly small change taken place. There was no way he could have possibly known the ramifications of his one decision. But just like the butterfly effect, that one small change could have changed so much. When we talk about what caused the Mandela effect, this is what we mean by time travel. Someone from the future traveling back in time and inadvertently or intentionally making small changes that over time create massive differences. This could explain small things like the dash in the Kit Kat bar, but also explain the massive and previously unknown historical events that now apparently happen, like the Black Tom explosion. Now, let's assume for a second that the Mandela effect is 100% confirmed real and is caused by time travel and the butterfly effect. We're still left with many questions. Questions such as, do we still exist? Or would it be so different from what we expect that we wouldn't be able to mentally cope with the changes? Honestly, who knows? Someone watching this right now could be the first person to travel through time and inadvertently or intentionally break reality for the rest of us. It's highly unlikely, but it's still a spooky thought. Actually, now that I think about it, what if it's just a fan of the Mandela effect in the future, going back in time and intentionally or unintentionally creating the Mandela effect? And that all of this is just one hilariously disturbing time paradox? What if this video sets that idea into motion, and one of us ends up creating the very thing that we're talking about right now? If that's the case, could you please add a few more zeros to all of our bank accounts? I say this every time, but I could talk about and speculate on this stuff for hours and hours. It's all so fascinating to me, as I hope it is for you as well. If the Mandela effect is caused by time travel, is it intentional? And if so, why? If not, then is it just a side effect of the butterfly effect? Or is the Mandela effect simply a side effect of something much greater than all of us, and we're all just staring at clues instead of the bigger picture? So what do you think? Is time travel and the effects of the butterfly effect directly responsible for what we know today as the Mandela effect? Without absolute evidence of time travel existing, we can really only speculate. But hey, that's the point of these videos. It's about laying out all the possible explanations of the Mandela effect. Do you think time travel caused the Mandela effect?
This has been a Penguinati production. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, links are in the description.